¿Qué tal? Buenos días aún.
Good morning. As José Luis just mentioned, I'm Pablo Jackson and I'm in charge of the business operations in MAPFRE in Peru. And for the next 40 to 50 minutes, I would like to explain what the emerging markets of Colombia, Peru and Chile are all about. But before anything else, I would like to introduce our distinguished speakers. Here we have Alejandro Reyes, who's the corporate manager of Thicopac Chile, which is a very important industrial conglomerate that Alejandro will present in great depth. And in the middle is Mr. German Saidan, who's the owner and executive manager of Owing Group, a leader in the plastic business. And he will tell us about the size and importance of his company. And finally, we have Mr. Jorge Palacio, who's the manager of hazards at the Medellin Metro, which is a very important Colombian company that we'll be looking into later on. But considering that this is such an extensive issue, we're talking about the emerging markets of these three countries, and I've taken the liberty of preparing something a little bit different, something that will allow me to introduce this region, and I would like to start off with that with a video so that we can establish the context. So please, let's have the video run, please.
Colombia, Peru y Chile son los países de Latinoamérica.
Colombia, Peru, and Chile are the Latin American countries that have very solid macroeconomic stability, and they have financial and trade policies which positions the leader as a strategic ally for other economic areas. And the region as a whole has an economic capability that is similar or greater than other developed countries. So this vast territory that is extremely wealthy in terms of natural resources is divided by a natural barrier, by the Andes mountain range, which requires major infrastructural investments and engineering projects. And these rivers that are fed by the constant rainfalls provide the slopes that are a blessing for the generation of green power and also provide a basic energy element for the development of the industry. In recent decades, there's been a very significant development in all three countries, and all of them have a free pricing system, and favorable rules have been established for local and overseas investments that has favored sustainable development. And there's a transparent legal system that allows stable contracts to be signed. And in these last years, these three countries have systematically maintained the lowest rates of inflation in Latin America. Peru, Chile, and Colombia. They are the countries with the biggest economic growth of the region. The main driving force comes from the private sector. Both private investments as well as family consumption figures have had sustained growth. So, as a direct outcome of this wonderful economic performance, these three countries have reduced their rate of poverty very quickly. And there's been an increase in the middle class, which means that there's more purchasing power in the general population. And these three countries have a very responsible tax system. This means that they can implement anti-cyclical policies that provide economic stability. So you can see that the sovereign bonds are very solid, and you can see that their risk rating is also excellent. And the three countries have received direct overseas investment thanks to their sustained growth, and they've managed to consolidate some very successful Latin American companies. And there are free trade agreements with the United States, with the European Union, and with Asian countries.
Adicionalmente, se han firmado tratados con
But
otros países
treaties
de la
had been
región,
signed with
destacando
other
la formación
countries
de la
in the
Alianza
region,
del
and we have
Pacífico,
the
que incluye a
Pacific
México.
Alliance that
Esta
includes
alianza
Mexico.
es una
And this
plataforma de
alliance
integración
is
económica y
an
comercial
economic
con
and
un
commercial
tamaño,
collaboration
PBI,
platform
población y capital bursátil del tamaño de Brasil o de
which is
Francia.
as large as
brechas de
Brazil or
infraestructura en
France. And the
viabilidad urbana, sector
infrastructural
eléctrico,
elements, the
puertos,
electrical business,
saneamiento,
harbours,
infraestructura
sanitation,
hospitalaria, entre
hospital
otros, ya han
infrastructures,
sido
amongst others,
identificadas,
have already
generando
been
oportunidades para
pinpointed,
la
and they
inversión
have
extranjera.
generated opportunities
El
for overseas
presupuesto de
investment.
inversión pública
And
y
the
privada para
public
los
and
próximos
private
24 meses es de
investments
aproximadamente
totaled
390 mil
through
millones de dólares
$390
en los
billion
tres países.
in the
Se
next
espera
24
una
months in all
importante
three countries.
participación
So
del
there's going to
sector
be
privado
very
en la
significant
provisión de
involvement
bienes o
of the private
servicios.
sector in the provision
Los
of certain
invitamos a
services.
conocer más
So we would
de
like
las
to invite you to get
oportunidades
to
que
know us
estos
better
países
and the
nos
opportunities
ofrecen.
that these countries offer.
Bueno, ya en contexto y para que no quede
Well, now to
realmente
set the context, and
solamente
I wouldn't
cifras,
this
ideas
only
y
to
las
be
grandes
related to
oportunidades que
figures
presenta la
and
región.
videos and the wonderful
Queríamos realmente
opportunities
llevar
offered by
esto
the
a
region, but
historias
we
reales de
wanted to
éxito. Para
talk
eso,
about
cada
some
uno de
real
nuestros
success
invitados
stories.
nos va a
So this is
presentar su
why each one
empresa.
of our
Estos son
panelists
casos
is going to
reales de
present their
empresas
companies, and
muy
these are real
exitosas y los
cases of
vamos a
very
ver a detalle. Ante
successful
todo, por
companies,
favor,
and we're going to see the
Alejandro
details.
Reyes, si nos
But now,
acompañas
Alejandro Reyes,
para ver un poco
please,
de la historia de
let's
Sigopac.
see what you have to say about Sigopac.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Muchas gracias
Good
al
morning,
organización
everybody.
de MAPFRE
Firstly,
por la invitación.
thank you very much
Para
indeed
nosotros es
for
muy
this
importante estar
invitation.
acá,
It's very important
colegas.
for us to be
Primero,
here
una
today.
corrección a Pablo.
But firstly, one
Nuestra
minor
compañía no es
correction for
Sigopac,
Pablo.
es
It's not
Sigocoppers. La
Sigopac,
Milla nos
it's
compró Sigopac y espero
Sigocoppers.
que no nos compre
And
Sigocoppers.
I hope, well, we were bought by Sigopac, and I hope that Sigocoppers will buy us.
Antes de entrar a
But
mostrar los números
before
de
giving
México,
you
un poco hablaré
figures, I would
del
like to
país,
talk to you about
Chile,
the country, about
de
Chile,
nuestra compañía.
and
Primero,
about
algunos
our
tips de
company.
nuestra compañía.
Well, I'd like to say a few things
Para
about our
Sigocoppers,
company.
hoy día lo
And
más importante son los
Siglo
empleados.
Copper's the most important thing are the workers, that is our co-workers, our collaborators. And there's an anecdote from the former chairman, the late former chairman, who told me, look, you and your wife can get divorced and she's going to take 50% of your property. But you'll never be able to divorce from the trade unions, and I hope that they will not take 50% of the company. So that means that people should always come first, and there should be a very good relationship between the managers and the trade unions, because Signo Coppers has 30,000 direct workers and nearly 60,000 indirect workers. So all you need to have one subcontractor to stop one of the mines, and losses would be enormous. So our success is based on having a good relationship with people. And then a second thing that makes us successful, this was when our chairman and founder of the company was very sick, and I'm afraid that he died. It was most unfortunate. But we had to take a number of quick decisions, and I spoke to one of the partners, and I said, well, look, we need to do this very quickly, very urgently. And he said, look, Alejandro, there are lots of people that want us to do things quickly, but don't forget that sometimes the deer is eaten by the lions. We are like elephants, and we follow our leaders until the very end. So when there's a change of leader, come and talk to me, but don't do anything before that, and nothing is going to be modified. So one of our strengths is that the founding partners of Siglo Coppers, well, it's got Chilean investors. It was 12 partners that were founded it, and now there are still 6, and they work with us every single day. They work office hours, and they set an example of what is supposed to be done properly. And when we do things incorrectly, they tell us what has to be modified. So leadership is one of the fundamental issues for our company. And here are our friends from Berger, España. We also have an agreement with Berger in Spain. Another anecdote, I was working out some calculations because I was having some problems with Berger, and we had to reach an agreement on X figure, and the current partner came into my office and said, what are you doing? I said, no, well, I'm just working things out because I have to go to a meeting with Berger to reach an agreement. And he said to me, look, I prefer to lose money, but never to have a fight with my partners. So partners, for us, both the partners that are suppliers or customers, are absolutely fundamental in our relationship with our companies. Now, some tips on the country. We are called an emerging country, Chile, and the truth is that I don't like that word very much, because I was in the United States and they asked me a question on emerging countries, and I said, what's the level of unemployment in Chile? We have a level between 3 and 6%, and the average wages per capita is about $20,000. So if we call this an emerging country, I feel very proud of being an emerging country. But Chile is a country of opportunities rather than an emerging country. So I would like you to go looking for those opportunities in Chile, because we are much more than an emerging country. Chile, and within its universities, it's amongst the leading 100 universities of the world. Our professionals are rated as the best professionals of Latin America, and they are at the same level as other professionals in the United States and Europe. And there are people from other countries that study in our country, so we are training outstanding professionals. But as our country is an emerging one, somebody asked us, what is the strategy you're sticking to? So if we are an underdeveloped country, we are just copying what developed countries do. So we draw the average, and then we can be rated as a developed country. So Signo Copper, as I'm going to prove, is present in more than 20 countries of the world in 5 continents. And this is because of the redistribution of our revenues, because 50% comes from Chile and the other 50% comes from our overseas operations. And some tips now in relation to the insurance market. In Chile, and I've said I'm a friend of Marge, and they've been in my office, and I'm very critical about the insurance market in Chile. There's no such thing in Chile. There are 3 insurance firms in Chile and 3,000 brokers. And if you call that a market, no, I'm afraid that we're not doing things properly. So as there is no market in Chile, we went outside looking for a safe market. And thanks to my friend in Belgium, we are now developing products for Latin America that are pretty successful. So I have some figures in my mind. As we went searching for these insurance policies abroad, we reduced our premiums by 25%, and we increased our coverage by 40%. So, in other words, we're paying things very expensively, we're doing things badly, and now we are paying less and have a greater coverage. But we are spending more, but we have a much better coverage. So my second message for the insurance firms right now, and I know that MAPFRE has a university here in Spain, in Chile, at universities, there are no such things as careers related to insurance. There's no knowledge, and this is transmitted from one individual to another within an insurance company and by the brokers. But there's no such thing as a formal university career that is taught in terms of insurance. So we executives operate based on ignorance, and that is the worst thing you can do, because when you operate in ignorance, you take bad decisions. So when my lady wife went to the malls the first time in the United States, she spent or used up half the credit card. So I think that this concept in Chile has to be changed, and we have to be more technical than more professional. And I would like to invite the insurance companies to invest not only in businesses in Chile, but also they invest in education and insurance, because we have a very pressing need for more education in Chile. So, as regards the premiums per capita, the money spent in Chile, right now the premium per capita that is spent is $700 per person. In the Latin American region, they are spending $300 per person. So in other words, we are more than double that. In Spain, it's $1,700 per person, and in the United States, it's $5,000. I'm not sure if my figures are accurate, but in any case, I obtained them last night. So that means that Chile and Latin America America have a lot of space to grow. So this depends on you, insurance companies and you brokers to do things properly. And now I'm going to move on to the presentation of Citgo Coppers. I'm going to be talking about my company. Citgo Coppers is a company that was established in 1960. And we are focusing on the infrastructural business, but related to mining. And this is, let's say, a transversal approach, if you want. And my friend from ICA, well, I would like to say something. Don't compete with Citgo Coppers in Chile. I prefer you to associate with Citgo Coppers, because if you want to compete, it's going to be very tough for you. I'm warning you. But anyway, Citgo Copper was born as an engineering firm in the year 1959, and then it became AX and carried on growing in the rest of the related businesses. But basically, you know Chile, and Chile, as you know, is a very long country, which has more than 7,000 kilometers, and it's very narrow. The narrowest section is something like 80 to 90 kilometers. So if I want to travel in Chile from top to bottom, it's like 7 hours aboard a plane. Lengthwise and widthwise, it's only 15 minutes. But why is this the case? Well, because we have the Pacific coastline, which is a very narrow stretch of land, and then we have the mountains. And the mountains from Santiago towards the north, that's where the mining operations are, basically iron and copper. And to the south of Santiago, we have the forestry companies, as well as the farming operations. So we have developed a chain along 3 major lines. In other words, production. In other words, we give support to the mountain mining operations, extraction through our company. We have 90% of the market through NX. We cover 90% of these operations, and then transport. We move the mineral and we take it to the processing centers, and that's where we have another company that is called Maroto, which is a Belgian company, where they grind the ore. So we help the company in the intermediate process, and there's another transport process. We take the ore to the harbors, and it's loaded on ships. So that is our know-how. So what we are doing, we are transferring that know-how to Chile, Colombia, Peru, and we're also present in Brazil. And this know-how now, this successful know-how, is being exported to European countries, to Asia, and the United States. Our company was born in 1960, and here you can see some of the names of our companies. I don't want to go into the details, of course, but I would like to say that in the SAP system that has to do with very successful implementation we've had in Latin America, we have 125 productive companies. The Citgo Copper Group is made up of 125 productive facilities operating in different areas, from the environmental area to the production chain. So nowadays, we have strategic capabilities, and we can establish strategic associations in different businesses. And we bought a French company last week dealing with explosives, and this week we've also bought another Brazilian company that produces explosive material. So we've bought 50% of the shares, and we've bought another Peruvian company dealing in explosives. In other words, we are making our strategy grow via development and via these company takeovers. But not only are we successful in terms of figures, and this is also a message that has to do with a company that has a high level of corporate social responsibility. And here I would like to make an aside, because I would like to show you some pictures later on. But we nowadays, unfortunately, we've seen the earthquake in Thailand, more than 7,000 people killed. And Chile had the second most important earthquake, level 9, and only 550 people died. And the 550, more than 300 of them were of a tsunami that was not forecast. But if the warnings would have been issued, it would have meant that the fatalities would have been only 200 in Chile. And the Chilean infrastructures are top quality because they can put up with grade 9 and grade 10 earthquakes. And Citgo Coppers has participated in these mega constructions. But I think that there's a concept that we are now taking on board, a corporate social responsibility, where companies play a very important role, which has to do with the risk element. And I saw a risk map for the first time 2 years ago, because this was done by one of the insurance companies, and they were selling the policy, and we were paying a premium for risks. But nowadays, in Chile, the corporations need to have a risk map, and they need to know what kind of actions have to be implemented, palliative actions. But what I do believe, well, I would also say something else, and this is the first time in the history of Citgo Coppers. I've been working for the company for 25 years, and it's the first time that an insurance company has invited me to get to know them. It's always been the intermediary, the broker, that did that. And I think that it's very important to have intermediation, but I think that it's very bad for the for the insurance company not to get directly in touch with the customer. I don't agree with the risk map that was drawn up for Citgo Coppers, and I invited them to visit us, and they came over 12 weeks ago, and they noticed that all the measures we've adopted, all the precaution measures, were much better than what they'd done in Europe. So if I were to study the map of risks they drew up here in Europe and compare it with our own map, you can see, or you would be able to see, that the figures are completely different. But unfortunately, Chile is 14 hours away by plane, and you waste or use up 1 day in traveling to Chile. But if you want to talk about Chile, you have to get to know Chile, you have to know its engineering, and you have to know its people too, and that's everybody's responsibility. But within the community, I would like to say that Citgo Coppers, in the 2010 earthquake, most of the educational infrastructures were lost, and Citgo Coppers built a school, and we invested about $15 million, and every year we are educating about 1,500 students in terms of social risks. And of these 1,500 students, we have a commitment of hiring 50% of them to work for the company. So in other words, we are teaching and we are recovering these youngsters so that they can join our company. And then the corporate strategy, as I said before, is based on development, on operations, and processing, sales, and logistics. And in each one of these 4 vectors, we are developing a number of actions. And under develop, we have construction engineering, we have Citgo Coppers, and we have NIX, a leader in explosives in the world. And we have a strategic agreement with SK Berger that has been a very big success, and here we have our friends here in the room, and we have a model that we implemented in Chile, and I'd say that we have it in Chile, in Colombia, in Peru, in Argentina and Mexico, and it's been a very big success. And I've been told that I have to finish because it's rather late, so I'll speed up a bit. But all of our companies, all of them are leaders, and that is a very significant message. If you're not a leader, don't do anything, because to become leaders, we have to be leaders in whatever it is we are doing. And as I was explaining before, our presence nowadays is in the 5 continents. Citgo Coppers has production facilities in more than 20 countries of the world. And people in Citgo Coppers speak French, German, English, Chinese, Taiwanese. They speak all sorts of languages, including Flemish in Belgium.
es un país de gente luchadora. La foto de abajo es la explosión del último
It's a
volcán.
country of hard-working people. This is
foto más arriba
the last
es de hace un mes atrás, y
volcano.
la foto del
The
otro
month at the
volcán,
top
que es el
is
volcán
a month
Villarrica.
ago, and the other picture is another
La foto
volcano,
primera
Villarrica.
es la foto
The
del ganado
first
saliendo de la
photograph
zona del
is the
volcán.
cattle
La
leaving
foto que
the
está
volcano
más
area.
hacia la izquierda es la
The
foto del aluvión
picture
del
on the
norte
left
hace un mes
is
atrás.
the flood in the north a month
La
ago.
foto de arriba son los barcos en medio
The
de la
pictures
ciudad, es
at
el
the top
terremoto y el tsunami
are
del
boats in the
2010.
middle of the city, the
Y la
tsunami
última foto
in
de arriba
2010,
también es el
and the
aluvión de
last
Copiapó,
picture
de
at the top is the flood at Copiapó. But in spite of that, Chile is a country that knows how to find a way out. We're very proud in our country, and I invite you to do business with our company because we're a successful company and we like to know our customers, our partners, our suppliers, and for us they are of vital importance. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Alejandro. Realmente.
Thank you, Alejandro. A very extensive and detailed and an excellent presentation. We're running out of time, so please, Jorge, if you would be kind enough to talk about Metro MDI.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning.
Más sinceros agradecimientos a
Our
Mafre
sincere
Global por
gratitude
esta
to Mafre
invitación.
Global for the invitation. We're very pleased to be here in Spain.
Y mencionar que la empresa Metro de Medellín
The company Metro Medellín is a state-owned company,
50% de la municipalidad,
50% owned by the municipality and 50% by the government.
moviendo unos
And we are currently moving around 800,000 passengers per day,
con un crecimiento importante
with a
esta-
significant growth in demand.
Nuestra intención como empresa
Our
industrial
aim
comercial del
as an
Estado
industrial and
es
commercial
no
state
solo
company
transportar
is not only to
personas de
carry
origen a un
people
destino, sino
from
que es
one point to another,
valor
but to add value to that transport system by promoting culture and manners in the system and outside the system. And on the new lines we've built, we've had a major social impact and have improved these communities.
In
In Medellin, for those of you that don't know it, this is the map of Medellin, more or less in the central area of the department of Antioquia. And this department is located in the northwest of Colombia. It's what we call the best corner in America, this corner next to Panama. And here are some demographic data on Medellin. And at the bottom, some figures on the value of Aburrá, which is the metropolitan area of the municipality of Medellin, with around 3.3 million inhabitants. One of our mottos is sustainable mobility and urban transformation, always looking to improve the quality of life of the citizens. We started our operations in 1995 in November, almost 20 years. And more than shortening the distances, we have provided quality of life for the inhabitants, time savings and significant economic savings that we're going to look into. There's a major novelty in our system. We have around 30 kilometers of railway. We have a bus line, and we have 3 telecabin lines. These are very frequently used at ski resorts.
en la implementación de este tipo de transporte para la zona
And
de
we
ladera.
have
Medellín es un
implemented
valle
this
recto
kind of transportation
y tiene al lado
for
y
the
lado
hillside areas.
montañas.
Medellin is a narrow
Entonces,
valley
ese río
surrounded by
poblano.
mountains,
Y con
mountains
esta
that have been
innovación de transporte,
built
esta ha
on.
sido la primera
And with this
ciudad,
innovation in transportation,
en el mundo que ha
it's the
implementado un
first
sistema de
city in the
transporte
world
masivo
that
por
has
medio de telecarriles,
developed
con lo cual
this kind
se ha
of
logrado
mass
una mayor
transport
integración de población que
system.
no tenía acceso al
And
transporte
this has provided transportation
Esta es
that didn't
una
have
diapositiva
access
de
to
cuando se
a
lanzaba
mass
la construcción
transportation
del
system.
sistema.
This is when we were
Las
building
líneas
the
de metro
system.
van paralelas a un río
The metro line runs parallel to the river.
y las estaciones tienen más o menos esta configuración.
And this is
Los
the
tramos a nivel,
configuration of
los tramos en
the
el centro de la
stations.
ciudad que son en altura. Pero aquí lo que queríamos significar
Here,
es
what we wanted to
la
point out
integración
is
que
the
hemos logrado
integration
de
that
las
we have
comunidades
achieved
de Oriente y Occidente de la ciudad
between the
a través
communities
de
of
las
the
pasarelas
east and west
que tiene
of
de
the
acceso a
city
las estaciones.
through these walkways to the stations.
Las zonas de ladera se han logrado potenciar
The
a partir del desarrollo
hillsides
de
have been
sistemas de
enhanced
cables.
by
Este es un ejemplo,
building this
una
cable
vista
system.
de una de las estaciones de-
This is
de
a
cable
view of
que sirven
one
estas
of
zonas.
the cable stations
Y esta es otra
that
vista de la-
operate in this area.
las áreas de
And this is
montañas.
another view.
Esta diapositiva nos ilustra rápidamente de cómo era
This
la
slide
situación antes
shows what the
de
situation
construir
was
el sistema de cable,
before building the cable
cómo,
system
ha migrado a esto.
and how it has
Una línea
changed
de
to this.
cable donde ya se nota algunos mejoramientos y
And we can
inclusive
see that there have been
mejoramiento
some
de las
improvements,
seguridades de estas comunidades.
including improvements
Beneficios
to the
económicos.
safety
No
of
voy a detener
these
a-
neighborhoods.
a
The
ver
economic
las
benefits,
cifras.
well, I'm not going
Estas son
to
algunas cifras
dwell on the
acumulativas de
figures.
unos
These
9
are some
años,
cumulative figures over
del 95 hasta el 14,
the period 95 to
de
2014. The operating
inversiones en
figures,
cultura metro.
investments
Para
in the
nosotros es
metro
fundamental
culture.
el
For us,
aporte social
it's
que hace por
fundamental
la empresa.
to make a
Si bien la
social
empresa
contribution from the company.
es de los pocos sistemas
Although the
metro
company is one of the
tiene
few
excedentes
metro systems
operacionales,
that has
también
an
alcanzamos
operating
a dar,
surplus,
un valor agregado en materia
and
de
we also
cultura,
provide added value
programas
in
con
the area of
líderes
culture
sociales
through
vinculados
programs,
permanentemente
social
al
leaders
sistema,
that are
con lo cual
constantly linked to the
se
system.
logra un blindaje social.
And this provides
La gente
social
quiere
protection.
muchísimo al sistema y eso
People
al final
love the system,
redunda en
and
innumerables
in the end,
beneficios, porque
this
no hay
leads
grafitis,
to
no
a
hay
large
daños,
number of benefits because there's no
tenemos un
graffiti, there's no
verdadero
damage.
aprecio de la comunidad por el
The
sistema y
company
eso,
really appreciates
ayuda
the
muchísimo
system,
para
and
conservarlo.
this is
Tenemos unos
of great
datos de
help
ahorro de
in
tiempo,
keeping it in
unos
good
datos de
condition.
ahorro económico
We
que
have
han
figures
tenido la
on time
población,
savings, economic
tanto para
savings for the
estudiantes como
population,
personas con movilidad
for
reducida
students, for people
y
with reduced
adultos
mobility,
mayores.
and senior citizens.
Como mencionaba, ahora hay algunas rutas de autobuses. Esas
As I
rutas
said, there's
también
now
tienen
a
unas
bus
rutas
service,
integradas
and these
adicionales que van conformando una malla. Y esa
bus
malla,
lines
con la
form
integración
a
tarifaria,
mesh.
pues ha traído unos
And
ahorros
this
importantes
mesh
para
has
los
brought
usuarios.
about also
¿Y
significant
qué decir
savings
del
for the
tema
users.
ambiental?
And what
Aquí
can we
tenemos
say
una
about the
estimación
environmental issue?
de
Here we
las
have an
emisiones de
estimate
CO2
of the
que no
CO2
se han
emissions
emitido a la atmósfera
that have
en
not
razón de que nuestro
been
sistema es un
put
sistema
into
de
the
alimentación
atmosphere.
eléctrica.
Since our system
Los
is
autobuses
an
son a
electric
gas.
system, the buses
Entonces,
are
esta es una estimación de lo que se ha
gas
dejado de emitir a la
run.
atmósfera en
So
materia de
this
contaminación.
is the reduction in pollution to
En
the
el
atmosphere.
2014, pues, esto
In
resume un poco los
2014,
datos del 14,
this summarizes the
la
figures for
reducción de emisiones
2014,
evitadas, el
the
ahorro de
reduction
tiempo,
of emissions,
traducido en un
time
beneficio
savings,
económico,
translated into economic benefits,
reducción del consumo de combustibles
reduction in the use of
fósiles,
fossil fuels,
y la estimación de lo que es
and the
la
estimate
disminución o de accidentalidad
of
por
the
efecto
reduction in
los
accidents
kilómetros recorridos por nuestras unidades
based on the
tren,
kilometers traveled
que
by
han
our
ayudado
trains
de manera importante a evitar
that have
una
significantly helped
accidentalidad en la ciudad.
to reduce the accident rate in the city.
Bueno, esto es básicamente lo que quería mencionar.
This is basically what I wanted to say.
Nosotros venimos con un programa de seguros bastante importante que ha tenido una dinámica.
We have a significant insurance program. MAPFRE has been with us for a number of years.
De la empresa que viene desarrollando nuevas líneas para este año.
We are developing new lines. This year we're going to put a 4-kilometer tram line into operation. And there are going to be 2 new cable systems on both ends to cater to the western area of the city. This, together with the strategic plan 2015-2030, including several investment programs, makes it very important for the insurance programs to adapt much more to the changing dynamics in the city and at the company. The company has had to adapt to its surroundings, to the needs of the population. It has had to innovate in mobility. And we're asking the insurance programs to follow our path to innovation and always provide coverage for these lines and any future lines. Thank you very much. We'll take a question or two from the audience. If you can move on to the first question, please. Let's see. Let's start with you, Alejandro. Can you tell us why do you think your business has gone well in general? Well, we supplied Jamil, and for a long time, Jamil was a competitor. I had the pleasure of meeting him. We became great friends, and I wish I'd met him sooner. Jamil bought a company where we didn't know the business, we weren't business leaders, and we weren't focused. And today it's in very good hands, and I want to congratulate Jamil for his results. He's done very well. And that business should never have been in our hands. Our company has to focus on where it has know-how and where it's a leader. Having very transversal executives that know about plastics or about washing machines is very complicated in a country where the labor market is very small. So in order to be able to growth in a sustainable way and build up new executives to develop those markets, you need to limit your scope where you're clearly a leader respected on the market, both nationally and internationally. These very transversal business expansions lead to the risk of doing things wrong where you're not a leader. Jamil was a leader in the plastic sector, and we didn't realize it for 10 years, and it cost us. And thanks to that experience, today we're leaders in our area. Thank you very much, Alejandro. It's clear that we have to focus on our core business.
Jorge, perhaps you could help us with this one. Which do you consider are the biggest challenges in the region for the development of new industrial actions or industrial endeavors? Well, yes, the challenge for the region basically has to do with developing itself from the industrial front in the case of the iron business. Because initially, 20 years ago, what we saw is that all of these spare parts for trains were imported, and the challenge has been to structure or to foster the development of local suppliers in order to perform all kinds of repairs and also to manufacture spare parts. And right now, we have something like 70% of the supplies covered locally, and we trust and hope that that
naciente o renaciente, porque la hubo tal vez en
emerging
una época
or
remota,
re-emerging industry,
de la industria ferroviaria la podamos hacer
because well, the
extensiva
railway
a las
business
otras ciudades,
is something that also
como
applies
la
to the
ciudad
rest of the
capital,
cities, like the
recién
capital,
va a iniciar ya la construcción de un sistema metro,
where they're going to
que
build
se
a
haga
metro system in a
extensiva
place called La Capital. And
la
we
industria ferroviaria a
want the
otras ciudades
railway
importantes
business to reach
de
out
Colombia. Ese
to
es un
other
reto
parts of Colombia.
importante
This
que
is
sabemos
one
que
of the most
aporta
important
muchísimo
challenges
al
which we
desarrollo
know
de
favors
la economía,
the development of
sumado
our
al
economy,
reto de sostener
together
lo
with
que es
the
para nosotros nuestro
challenge of
principal
sustaining,
activo, que
because
es
that's
la
one of our
cultura
main
metro,
assets, we have
que
to
es
maintain the
toda
metro culture,
el aprecio
which
y el
is,
cariño que
well, we
tiene
know
la ciudadanía
that
por
our
el sistema, como ya lo
citizens
mencionaba
really
hace un rato,
appreciate and support the system, as
es
I
el
said a few minutes ago.
sostenimiento permanente
And what they
a
want
través
to
de
have
gestión social,
is
de gestión
through
cultural,
social management and
de
cultural
esa
management,
cultura que
what they
hace
want to
que las
do
personas se
is
comporten
maintain this
distinto
culture
dentro del
that makes people behave
Muchísimas
differently
gracias,
within the system.
clarísimo. Un adicional. A ver, Alejandro,
Well,
ya que tocabas el tema de
Alejandro,
seguros hace un
as you were
rato, veo
talking
que
about
con
the
el tiempo
insurance
te has venido,
issue,
pues,
I
gradualmente
can see
empapando,
that
¿no?
little by little you
Conscientes todos
become
también
much
de
more
la
involved
falta
in
de
this sector, because
capacitación por
everybody's
parte de la
aware
región, pero
of the fact
cuéntanos
that
un
there's a
poquito
lack of
del
training
contexto
in
de
the region.
riesgo,
But could you
¿no?
talk a little bit
¿Qué
about
te
the
aportan y qué le
risk
faltan a los
context? So,
seguros desde tu
what do you
punto de
think
vista?
is lacking in terms of insurance right now from your point of view?
Son dos cosas distintas.
Well, we're talking about two different things. One of them has to do with the relationship with the insurance market. I think that the insurance market in Chile in particular, I think that what it could do is get closer and closer to the end customer, and many times doing so through brokers, of course. And this knowledge has made it possible to reduce many of the shortcomings, because we didn't have enough knowledge and there were things that were not fully covered. But as regards the map of risks or hazards, well, every day we are learning new things that are related to the transport of freight. For instance, Sigdo Coppers has 200 vessels every month that transport goods or freight to Chile or to other places. Ensuring 200 vessels a month requires a significant degree of know-how, and that's know-how that we didn't have. And they spoke to us about all kinds of insurance policies, but that was like double Dutch until we understood what that actually meant, and when we understood what the benefits were like. And I studied this 5 years ago. Nobody knew what these formulas were all about, so I went to the United States to attend workshops where they explained the different kind of insurance companies, insurance policies rather. But this was the knowledge that we developed ourselves. And it wasn't because the market got in touch with us to offer us any kind of product or new product, no. And this is the key message, because in Chile, in former times, and I was mentioning this to a broker over during the reception, because we used to do business having a glass of wine and eating some delicious food, and we signed agreements at a restaurant or in a stadium, but that is over and done with in Sigdo Coppers, because nowadays companies need to know where the risks are and where the possible impact could occur, if there's going to be a tsunami, where it's going to be, and if there's going to be an earthquake, what's going to happen with our information system, is it going to collapse, and how many days are we going to be put out of action, etc. And this is something that we have to obtain through a tripartite agreement between the insurance company, the broker, and the end customer, and we have a long way to go in that respect in Chile. Thank you very much. Well, I'm afraid that we're running out of time, and if the lights are now being turned on, which means that we are very late, and as Armando said, there's always the opportunity to discuss or to talk about these things during the breaks with our customers. But just a few conclusions, if we can go back now to the presentation. I think that it's very clear, and regardless of whether we're talking about emerging markets or not, I think that our area has a very high potential. I think that that was very clear. We've been talking about three very successful companies that have developed things perfectly well, and they've given more value to the region. I think that these are three clear success stories, and it's an area where there's lots of business possibilities. I think that the economic, political, and legal context context allows for this to occur. There's a significant deficit in terms of infrastructures. As we say, everything has to be done. We need motorways, harbors, airports, hospitals, and there are many things to be done in the region. And I think that this is an industry that is thirsty for know-how. We require know-how. We need the advanced markets, the Europeans and the North Americans, to come along with more knowledge and more know-how, and not only be suppliers of primary elements. But I think that this is something that has to do with this gap that we spoke about of nearly $390 billion, only in terms of construction, because we're talking about a very significant space or role for the insurance business. And I think that it was something like $980 million in premiums, only in terms of construction. I'm not talking about fire hazards or anything like that. And I think that we are facing a major challenge. And I would like to finish by basically drawing a big conclusion, and that is that MAPFRE, as a major provider of comprehensive solutions, I think that we are there to give them our support. I think that Alfredo's presentation was very clear, and it's wonderful to be able to receive your support in each one of the countries in which we operate. We have integral solutions for all of you. And I wouldn't want to finish without thanking our much distinguished customers and guests. Many thanks for your support. Many thanks for your time, and many thanks for the presentations. So thank you all very much indeed.